Hi everyone, it's Kathy. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I'll be sharing how to create a sidestep card. And the products that I used are the Jingle All the Way stamp set, the Tree Assortment Die Set, and the Slimline Hill House die. I wanted to take a minute and show how a sidestep card looks. So that's what I'm doing right there so that you can see it is a 4.5 by 5.5 inch card, so it will fit into a regular A2 size envelope. And then when it stands up, the levels on the right hand side kind of spread out so you can see the steps of the card. The first thing that I did was I used a piece of patterned paper from the new Blurry Flurries paper pack, and I cut it down to a 5.5 by 4.25. Then with the 5.5 inch side at the base of my paper trimmer, I lined the left side up at 3 inches and just cut it. Those are the two panels that are going to go on the front of the sidestep card. To create the actual card base itself, you need a piece of cardstock that measures 5.5 by 8.5. With the 5.5 inch side at the top of your paper trimmer, you want to line the left side up at 3 inches. Then you're going to move your blade down to the 1 inch mark. You're going to cut from the 1 inch mark all the way down to the 6.5 inch mark, basically cutting a slit in your card base. Next up, you're going to do some scoring to create the steps, and this can be a little bit tricky, so I'm going to try and explain it the best I can. After you cut the slit in the cardstock, one side is going to be 2.5 inches and the other side is going to be 3 inches. The way I have it on my scoreboard right now is obviously the 8.5 inch side is up against the top of the scoreboard. The part that I'm scoring right now, that's the 2.5 inch side above the slit that I had cut, and I scored that at 4.25 inches. Next, I flipped the cardstock so that the 3 inch section above the slit that I had cut is at the top. And I scored at a 1 inch, at 2 inches, 3.25 inches, 4.5 inches, and 6.5 inches. I'll make sure to have all of these measurements listed over on my blog for you, and I'll make sure to link to that in the description box below. After all of the scoring is done, you need to fold on those score lines. With the 3 inch section from the slit on the right hand side, you're going to fold along that first 1 inch score line so it is a mountain fold. The one behind that is a valley fold, then a mountain fold, and so on and so forth until you're all done. The score line that you did on the 2.5 inch section, which is on the left, you're going to fold that score line as a mountain fold. Once you have all of those score lines folded, you do want to use a bone folder or an acrylic block or something just to make sure that the creases are nice and crisp. Now that the card base is done, I'm going to go ahead and set that aside. And next up, I'll stamp and color the little elf from the Jingle All the Way stamp set. I stamped this little guy using Memento Tuxedo black ink, and I stamped him onto a piece of Cougar Super Smooth cardstock. I'm not going to leave all of the coloring in. I think the thing that I really wanted to share is something that I've been practicing lately, which is underpainting when using my Copics. So for the tree, I started out with B34 and I added that in the areas where I wanted to have the deepest, darkest shadows. Then I came in with G09 and I colored directly over the B34 and extended that even further than the B34. Once I was done with the G09, I came in with YG17 and colored in even more of the tree. I made sure to leave some white space though, so I could have some highlights. Once I was done with the YG17, I came in with YG13 and finished coloring in the tree. And with the YG13, I did go directly over the G09 and the YG17 just to make sure that I had a smooth blend. For the rest of the coloring, I did keep it really very simple, and I'll make sure to list all of the Copics that I used over on my blog. For his hair, I only used two colors, and I concentrated the darkest color closest to his hat, and then I blended that out with my lightest color. For his skin, I did use 3 markers, but again, I started with my darkest and added that where the shadows would be the darkest, and then blended out with my other 2 colors. For the bells, I used 3 colors, and again, did my usual. I started with my darkest and added that in where the shadows would be the darkest, and then blended it out with my midtone and my lightest tone. After I had that little guy all colored up, I did run him through my brother's scan and cut machine and had him cut out. Then it was time to start working on putting the card together. I ran the Slimline Hill House die through my die cut machine with a piece of brown colored cardstock, and then I just trimmed off all the excess pieces around the frame so that I could get it to fit onto the piece of patterned paper. Once I had that cut down to the right size, I did grab some yellow cardstock and I cut strips of it just so I could adhere it to the back side of my little house, just to make it look like the windows were lit up. After I had my windows glued in place, I did use my paper trimmer to cut off the bottom of the house just so it would be a straight line. And then I used liquid glue to adhere that to a piece of the patterned paper. This is going to be on the left-hand side of the card. So the patterned paper measures 2.5 by 5.5. I did want to fill in areas on the hill house, like where the door is and then the trim on the roof pieces. So I did cut the hill house from white cardstock just so I could do a little bit of paper piecing. After I had those little pieces adhered in place, I decided to add some snow to the house. And I also wanted to cover the bottom so that it would look like there was a snowy bank at the bottom. For my snow, I used frosted lace stickles, and I put that on the edges of the roof and also along the top of the snowbank that I had added to the bottom of the house. To create that snowbank at the bottom of the house, I used the Stitched Border Trio die set and just cut it down to size to fit across the bottom there. For the windows, to add a little bit of shine, I used my Nouveau Crystal glaze and just filled in the windows. In hindsight, I kind of wish I would have used a white gel pen to go around the windows so it looked like they had more of a frame, but that's neither here nor there. For the right side of my card, I had die cut 3 trees from the Tree Assortment Die Set from white cardstock, and I did go over them with my Wink of Stella glitter pen so that they would be nice and shimmery. And I adhered them to the 3-inch wide piece of patterned paper. And here I was trying to figure out where I wanted my other snowy bank, and it covered up too much of the trees on the very back side, so I decided to put that on the second step instead. Once I had decided that, I laid the card out flat so that I could adhere the trees to the very back step on the right-hand side of the card. To make sure that I didn't get glue in all of the wrong places, I made sure just to add the adhesive on the actual card base itself. For the snowy hill on the second step of my card, I just used liquid glue to adhere that in place, and I made sure only to put adhesive on the bottom of the hill, again to make sure that I didn't get glue in all the wrong places. For the very front step, I cut another piece of white cardstock using the Stitched Border Trio die and cut that so that it would fit on the right-hand side. Next, I adhered the piece with the hill house onto the left side of the card, and I didn't wait for my stickles to dry completely, and I kept sticking my fingers in it. So after I was all done, I did end up going back and adding some more stickles to fix the areas where I had picked up some of the glitter with my finger. To adhere my little elf, I put glue on the very bottom of him and adhered him to the front of the card. And again, I put the adhesive directly on him to make sure that I didn't glue my card shut. To finish up my card, I used my Wink of Stella glitter pen and went over the tree. And then I used the frosted lace stickles to add some snow to the little hill on the second step of my card. And that's it. That finishes up my little side step card for today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, we'd love it if you would. And don't forget to ring the bell so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.